Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is the Steven Hour, and yes, we are back with another Batman 66 episode review. Today we'll be reviewing The Spell of Tut, King Tut's return, and first time, or episode, in Season 2. So let's get into it. We begin our episode with basically King Tut and one of his henchmen feeding a crocodile. Yes, you heard that sentence right. A little foreshadowing for the end of the episode. Basically, as they're doing that, he's also wondering where the rest of his crew is and what they're doing. We then cut to a scene where they essentially are robbing some rich guy's place and take what is essentially a string of amber beads, and on their way out they end up knocking out the supposed millionaire, the rich guy. And we then cut to Police Commissioner Gordon's office, where he's explaining everything and how he was essentially knocked out with a lead pencil. And the only thing they took was amber beads, when really they could have taken so much more, such as diamonds and even cash. Here we also get to see that Commissioner Gordon has a new secretary, as Bonnie has left for a holiday essentially, and he is stuck with her. Just as that's happening, they're trying to piece together what happened, with the fact he was knocked out with a lead pencil. And essentially they were dressed in very odd clothing. They realize that it is indeed King Tut. They then end up calling up Batman, telling that King Tut is essentially back. We then use the open credits, and Batman is quickly there at Commissioner Gordon's office. Just as they arrive, they do go over the facts and do realize that it is most likely King Tut. They end up calling Yale to double check, where they found out that when he was giving a lecture, he ended up getting hit on the head, and he is back to King Tut. Realizing that, and realizing, well, what King Tut is no doubt after, lead pestle, they then look up possible locations for him to hide out, and when they find one, they start racing over there. Also during this scene, Batman also gets acquainted with Gordon's new secretary. Just as that's happening, King Tut and his henchmen are essentially in a drugstore, and essentially what they're trying to do is, because turns out in the amber beads are actually scarabs who have been sealed up there for 1,000 years. He plans to essentially revive them. And just as of course they go along with the experiment. Now at first it doesn't work, which does throw him into a bit of a temper tantrum. And for me, Victor Buono doing that scene makes me laugh every time. I honestly feel that, this was just so worth it. He essentially turns into a big crybaby, and I'm laughing my head off. Of course, it's then revealed that the scarabs are starting to wake up, and it turns out they do live. We then, of course, cut to Batman and Robin climbing up the side of the building, where we get another window cameo. They then keep going up, and until they get into the drugstore. King Tut orders one of his men to go out and check who it is, and when they find out it's Batman, a bat fight breaks out. It's all very fun and playful, but it results in Batman and Robin getting knocked out by essentially having knockout gas blown in their face. King Tut and his men quickly run away with the scarabs, but they end up leaving one behind. When Batman and Robin go into the back room, they end up finding one and do some investigating, finding out that with the scarab that they left behind a scarab that is alive. They then take it back to the Batcave and find out what he's trying to do is essentially to create a formula known as Abu Rabu Simbu 2, which essentially is a kind of drug that can paralyze the human will, essentially mind control. Now, realizing about this, they need to draw King Tut into the open, and they got a trap. And this essentially is a callback from King Tut's first outing. When he first struck, he had that queen statue, and it said that Bruce Wayne has it and is auctioning it off. King Tut wants it back, and we get this very fun scene where he and his men essentially read through the newspaper, and I like how King Tut gets angry when he says, get angry that Bruce has it, and all because he tried to kidnap him last year. He sounds like it's like no reason to get angry about. I really love it. Just as that's happening, they go to Wayne Manor and pinch pinch the Sphinx, the statue, and it turns out Robin's inside with a tracking device. What could go wrong? They then take him to essentially King Tut's new hideout, and it's also revealed that what they plan to do with the Abu Rabu Simbu 2 is essentially some of it's going to be transformed into pills, which he then plans to give to Commissioner Gordon. And it's revealed that the person who's going to give him this drug is King Tut's female accomplice, who just happens to be Gordon's new secretary. Just as Robin's finding this out, he drops essentially his radio, and this alerts everyone in the building as they're wondering what the hell's, realizing what's going on. They then investigate and find Robin locked in the Sphinx. Robin tries to escape, but he ends up running into the same room where all the crocodiles are being held. And essentially, like, the floor starts to move back, and essentially if Batman doesn't get there in time, Robin's going to be eaten by crocodiles. And that's where we end on our cliffhanger. For me, everything's just really going good in this episode so far. Nothing really stands out with, like, the main cast, really. I like how it's purely Robin that's getting in a predicament this time. Again, it's kind of like what they did with the Bookworm, with only Robin really in trouble, Commissioner Gordon, Chief O'Hara bumbling as ever, and just the overall crate. And honestly, Alfred and Aunt Harry don't really have much screen time per se with these episodes, but of course, the real main star is of course our villain. King Tut by Victor Buono is back once again, and like I said in the previous King Tut outings, my problem is I felt that something was not fully realized. It was still entertaining, but it was still not fully realized. Here, I think we finally get to see King Tut becoming more into his own character. I like how he's a bit more goofy and silly, and even though you're wondering how the hell can a professor have all the funds for this, is still questionable, but the point is you're not supposed to question it. It's supposed to be silly and over the top. I like how he talks to his henchmen. All of them are colorful and interesting in their own right. And when he becomes this crybaby, would actually become a bit of King Tut's character going forward in the series. I just love it. Victor Buono just breathes life into a character that really shouldn't work. And I feel that all the kinks problems I had in the previous episodes, there's none here. And Victor Buono is just really doing it for me. Also, this is the first ever. Also, we have our another window cameo, and here is a surprise for you. It is the Green Hornet and Kato. Now, for those who don't know or have been out of the loop, the Green Hornet was essentially a superhero TV show airing around this time, and was done by the same producer, William Dozier. What makes it different to Batman is he's essentially being a darker interpret. He's essentially a more serious crime show compared to the lighthearted Batman 66 show. And I like this thing how they pop up, and essentially it's kind of used as a way to promote the show, kind of. And they would do it a few times during the second season. One would be in the Joker's Return episode, where he comes back for this second season, and another is a proper crossover, which is a long, long way away. Honestly, and I just like how they just meet, pop up. It's like, and Batman says, "What are you doing on my city?" It's all fun, and just as they close the window, Robin just turns to Batman and says, "Why are they dressed like that for?" I get a huge laugh out of that, as the way the Batman and Robin are dressing. I'm like, hey, you guys can't judge for what they're dressed like. You just can't. Also, what makes these two special, even though we don't get to see it in this episode, they have another famous superhero car, the Black Beauty, which is a gorgeous looking car. It really is. The Spell of Tut, for me, is a really fun King Tut episode. I think they finally figured out the performance of Tut, and also more of his criminal operations are really fully explored in the idea of what motivates King Tut. He wants to take over Gotham and use Egyptian, and basically his crime does have an Egyptian theme. I really like the idea of basically creating a sort of drug that turns Gotham citizens under his power. It's a really interesting thing. Implausible in some places, but then again, you gotta give the show a bit of leeway. Then the idea is not to always question it. It is to enjoy like the absurdity and craziness, but even I can agree it does have its limits. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. Not breaking any top 10s, but certainly an enjoyable episode. And there we have it, The Spell of Tut. You've already heard my review. It's a fun episode. Tune in next time we review the part 2 to this Mad Pharaoh's plan. So tune in next time for the same Steven hour, the same Steven time, and the same Steven channel. And ladies and gentlemen, so long for now.